What is up, everyone? JD here. I hope you're all doing well today. Today I thought we'd have a little bit of fun and do a battle of the blades. But before I do that, let me really quickly give you guys what's in my pocket today. Today I'm carrying my Demco AD 20.5. I have the clip point variant, and I have these really awesome fat carbon scales and backspacer from Carbidized. And I did go ahead and throw on that Lynch Northwest deep carry pocket clip. And I'm still rocking those skiff bearings that fit really well. Check that video out right here if you're interested in that. But don't forget to finish this one up before you leave me, guys. A little bit of house cleaning. If you do enjoy this video, do me a favor, leave a like. Consider subscribing. I'd love to have you follow along. I really would. It'd mean a whole lot to me, guys. And don't forget to turn on those notifications so you get alerts when future content drops, just in case something else comes out that you might be interested in, that you may enjoy and want to know about. So here's what I thought we would do today. Today, I thought we would do a worker battle. What do I mean by a worker battle? Well, I have some knives here that I'm going to bring out that I think constitute everyday carry worker knives that are a bit more built for hard, heavy use. And you'll see why when we get into them in just a moment. So first and foremost, let me bring out the SIG K320 by Hogue. This one here has a 3.5 inch S30V blade. It has a 4.75 inch polymer handle, really good handle. Overall length 8 inches. So this is going to be our first contender. Next up is going to be the SPYDERCO SHAMAN. This one here has a 3.61 inch S30V blade steel, really nice, made in the USA knife as well. These are both made in the USA. G10 handles, but it is that smooth G10, coming in at 4.7 inches. Overall length, 8.31 inches. And for those budget I just realized these are both all black knives. I really didn't have much of a choice here. I bought these. This one here was on sale at Blade HQ. They didn't run anything at Knife Center, so I couldn't get the satin blade. But I still think it looks good. And for my budget friends out there, I thought I'd bring out a knife here that I thought, as soon as I unboxed it, really fell into this category and was really surprised by that. And that's going to be the Hogue K320. This one has a 3.39 inch D2 steel blade. It has textured G10 handles coming in at 4.76 inches, and overall length of 8.15 inches. So these are our three contenders for today. Before I jump into it, again, some of this is going to be subjective. Some of this is going to be based on my preference and my opinion. This is all in fun, so let's just enjoy it and not get too hot and sweaty about this. Let's go ahead and dive into it. I'm going to go into the blade steels first. I'm going to make this really quick and simple. I gave both S30V blades a 3, so the SIG K320 gets a 3. The SHAMAN gets a 3 also for that S30V. I really like that blade steel a lot. And I did give the Hogue a 2 for the D2 steel. They did coat it, but you do have to worry a little bit about the corrosion and the toughness on that steel. However, this will make up ground later. Don't you worry. I know what y'all are all thinking. Now, so all of them get, so that's your scores, 3, 3, and 2. Now, let's talk about blade length and usable blade. Excuse me. So, from a blade length perspective, you're getting 3.5 inches of S30V with the K320. Now, it does give you a little bit of a finger guard, and it does give you plenty of protection because it is not sharp at all on the back side of that. And you can see I've used this quite a bit. This does get plenty of use on the weekends, breaking down packages for boxes that I get in during the week. So 3.5 inches, not all of it is cutting edge, but it does give you a lot. And I'm going to give it a 3, and I'll explain a little bit more why this one's getting a 3. And the next one up we're going to talk about is the SPYDERCO SHAMAN. This one has a 3.61 inch blade. However, as you can see here, a lot of that cutting surface is taken up by that finger guard, but you still are getting more cutting edge because of the longer blade. Man, you can really see where these guys are getting used. You can really see where you're getting more cutting edge even with that finger guard in place because it is 3.61 inches. So I am also giving this one a 3 as well because it is giving you the option to choke up on that finger guard and still have more cutting edge than you do on the SIG. So I do like the fact that both give you finger guards and give you cutting edge. And then the last knife that we're going to talk about as far as cuttable using edge is going to be the Kubi. Now, when you compare the Kubi to the cutting edge that you're getting with the SHAMAN here, you can see that you're getting more cutting edge than you are on both of these knives here, because of the fact that you don't have the finger guard to choke up. So you do have a little bit, and you can almost go to the first knuckle, but honestly, when I'm here, I can actually feel a little bit of the knife's edge as far as choking up, and I would be really apprehensive about choking up like here because I can just feel the blade playing around a little bit there. So honestly, I'd recommend that you stay behind the finger guard when you choke up. And because of that fact that it doesn't give you the option like it does on these two guys to get right up on the blade's edge without having to worry about slipping into the cutting path, I did knock it a little bit for that and gave it a 2, but you still get a lot of cutting surface. And you could, if you're very careful, put your finger over top of the flipper tab to get up there, but you still have to worry about slipping into the knife's blade path, and it is not very comfortable when you're choking up on the knife like that. So I did give it a 2 in that regard. Here we go. All right, so the next thing that we want to talk about are the handle materials. I'm trying to put these up here to where you can enjoy looking at them while I'm talking about their categories. So the SIG K320 comes with a polymer handle. It is thinner on the butt of the knife than it is at the head of the knife, and that really tends to lend to really awesome ergonomics. I do really like the jimping. The jimping on the polymer, like a pistol handle, has a lot of grip. My only complaint is I kind of wish they would have thrown a little bit of jimping up here in these finger grooves, because it is a little bit slick when you get above that jimping on those index fingers. Now, it is a bit rough, so it might feel uncomfortable to some folks that might not have hands, but if you're working with your gloves, these are going to be really, really nice because it's going to offer a lot of grip in hand with the gloves. I think the little bit of jimping maybe in here or perhaps in here probably would have been easier just to do it right here behind the access lock. I think would have made it a 3 for me, but in the end, because it's not, and the fact that it is still very comfortable and it has a little bit of jimping, I did give that a 2. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the SHAMAN. The SHAMAN has really outstanding ergonomics with it. It feels really comfortable in hand when you're using it in the finger guard hold, but when you move up to use it in the choke up position, it does become a little bit awkward right here because it does help with the finger when you're talking about the ring finger to have that thicker hold. But it just ends up being kind of awkward because I don't know really where to put these hands. I don't know if I should be trying to spread them out, but I really want to choke up to move up. And I do feel a little bit of sharpness here when I do try to choke up. Right here where the compression lock is, I do feel a little bit of the sharpness on the cutouts for this. So I do feel that in hand. And also it is slick, but it is kind of textured, so you do have, it is slick G10, but it doesn't really move easily, and I think because they do have those finger cutouts, it does help keep the hand in place. But because it does feel a little bit awkward in the choked up position, but feels awesome in this position, I kind of feel like I'm either way too far behind the knife if I want to be in maximum comfort, or when I want to be fully secured and up on the blade, I'm in a little bit of an uncomfortable position. So I gave it a 2. Didn't knock off on it too much, but it's definitely not perfect. Now, the Kubi KU32 has textured jimping, so you can see here, really well textured and feels very secure in hand. Now, the difference here is that you do have a little bit of contouring on the K320 and you have contouring on the SHAMAN. but you don't have contouring at all on the KU322. So even though it is full, like if you look at how much knife handle you have on here, you do have it. It is full and it comes into the hand really nicely. Not quite as comfortable as the contouring on the other two knives. So I did give it a 2. So still really good grip with this knife, and the texturing on the G10 is done fantastic. So whether you're working barehanded or in gloves, it's still going to bring pretty good confidence in hand, but I did go ahead and give it a 2. Let's talk about overall length of the knife, and for that I'm going to change up how they're sitting just a little bit. So when you talk about the overall lengths of these knives, you're going to have the SIG K320 coming in at 8 inches. You're going to have the KU322 coming in at 8.15 inches, and you're going to have the SHAMAN coming in with the longest at 8.31 inches. And you're probably thinking, oh, the shorter knife is going to win this category because it is shorter. But remember, we're doing a worker battle blade knife. Now, the 8 inches is plenty to grip onto, but you have one option. If you wanted to ramp back, you start to lose some position. So if you're trying to do something hard or heavy duty that you want to move back on, if you're trying to chop through some stuff, and you do have the finger guard to move you up to give you that space, but just talking about the handle itself and the options that you have to move around, you don't have as much of an option on here. But it does give you full in-hand grip, and it is going to be really confident, inspiring when you choke up. So I did give this a 2. With the KU322, also it has really good ergonomics. It does give you the full in-hand grip. It gives you a little bit to back up on to do a little bit of the chopping type task. But again, not the best when it comes to choking up and getting right up on that blade. It's not comfortable being on top of that flipper tab. And to get close to that blade, you have to kind of compromise your position a little bit, or you're going to have to loosen up your index finger and bring it up to get up close to that blade. But the G10 texturing and the fact that it is full in-hand grip and it does fill the hand really nicely, I still gave it a 2. I thought it was okay, but definitely not the best. Now, when it comes to the SHAMAN, I did complain a little bit earlier about the ergonomics, but you do have the option to go back really far on this for chopping type tasks. You can move up just a little bit here if you're just doing general cutting tasks, and you don't need to, move up all the way up on the blade. And even when you move up on the blade, it does feel a little awkward to have that lump, but it's not hot and it's not like uncomfortable to the point where you're really feeling any type of hot spot in the hand when you're trying to use the knife. So due to all the versatility with this particular knife, I did give it a 3 for this category. So it did get the highest rating by being the longest, but also maximizing all that space. All right, let's talk about weight. Now, in this instance, the lightest weight is going to rank the highest, and I'll move through this one pretty quickly. It won't take a whole lot of time to go through the weight. So the SHAMAN coming in at 5.24 ounces does weigh the most, so it gets a 1. The KU322 does manage to get under 5 ounces by being 4.91 ounces, second lightest, so I did give it a 2. And then almost coming in under 3 ounces, so close, at 4.18 ounces, the K320 getting 3 points for being the lightest of all 3 of these worker knives. When it comes to all overall ergos, not to be confused with the handle, but as far as just in-hand ergonomics and being in-hand, all 3 of these are really comfortable, and I really just had a hard time knocking in any of them from a full in-hand grip experience. And again, just the ergos of holding the knife and using it, I gave all of them a 3. So I wanted to move through those categories quickly because they were really easy for me to determine that they all had really good ergos that I really did like using and having in hand. As far as their use intent, I feel like these are all built by the manufacturer to be used hard, and I feel like they all do a really good job of that. So I did give them all a 2. I didn't give them a 3 because they're not perfect. They're not Excalibur style knives, in my opinion. They all have small flaws, but they all do a really good job giving you full in-hand use, giving you plenty of cutting surfaces, being nice and thick but still being slicey behind the edge somewhat, so you can, you know, flex a little bit into some other duties. So I did give all of them a 2. Now let's get into the locking systems, which I think is going to be really interesting for a lot of you guys. Now I'm going to go ahead and start with the SPYDERCO K320. This has a simple and traditional liner lock, very easy to access, does keep your finger in the blade path, but works really well locking the knife out and have absolutely no lock rock whatsoever. Let me move my hand out the way before I test that. No side to side play. Does have ceramic bearings, so it is fall shut, and from a worker's knife that might be a little bit of a concern, but the lock itself is really well done, really nicely accessible. The jimping helps to be able to manipulate that, and I have no issues or discomfort from doing it back to back many times in a row. It is a liner lock, so your finger is in the blade path. I did give that one a 2. Next up, we're going to talk about the Able lock from Hogue that's here on the SIG K320. This is a very strong locking system. It is not at all likely to lose its grip from a lock perspective. It does keep the fingers out of the blade path, even if you're just pulling down and closing it traditionally without having to use the wrist flick. It does allow for one-handed operation, which is really nice. Again, fingers out of the blade path, but the one drawback is you will eventually be replacing those Omega springs. I don't know anyone that hasn't had it break at some point in time, but I know both Benchmade and Hogue back their knives and warranty them. I've had to replace them on the Deca, and I had to replace it on the Doug Ritter, and I got my knife back within 2 weeks. Of course, this was before supply chain issues, but that's neither here nor there. So I did give it a 2 because you do have to worry about the potential of the Omega spring breaking on you when you're out using it. Last, but certainly not least, is going to be the SHAMAN. The SHAMAN does have the compression lock. It is one-handed operation. It does keep the fingers out of the blade path, and it is very intuitive and easy to use. I do like this one a lot. It is very strong. It does work on the spine butt of the knife itself, so it is locked up solid and is going to be really, really strong. I did give that one a 3. I think that is the best option out of all 3 of these locks. All right, now let's get to the part that I think y'all all are probably screaming at the little tiny screen about, and that's going to be price point. Now, of course, price is a factor depending on what your budget is and what you're looking to spend and what you want to spend on a knife that you're going to take out and beat up and use hard. Now, the SHAMAN coming in to be the most expensive on the table at over $200 is a lot to put out for S30V, Slick G10, and a compression lock. While it is intended to be used hard and it is built well to do so, I do understand that is a lot of money to put out for a knife that comes through not being absolutely perfect, in my opinion. And I think the fact that they don't have the finger guard coming all the way, I think they should have brought that finger guard out to the very tip and had it stop like right about here so that your fingers could be here on the knife, and I think you're in a better position. And I think that this could also be easily under $200 for the entry-level knife. So that's getting a 1. Next up, that I think is really good compromised value for being in between the two, you're getting S30V, you're getting a really strong polymer pistol style handle from SIG here on this Hogue built knife. Really, really good value. You do get a strong Able lock, and again, it's not like these Omega springs are just going to go around breaking every week. It's going to happen, but you may luck out. It may never happen. You may be able to use this knife forever and it never happened, but it is warranted, so that in the event that it may possibly happen, it's going to be warranted out. Ergonomics are outstanding. I love the fact that you can just, it's got a shorty pocket clip. The lanyard hole is not in the way of the pocket clip. You can carry it deep carry, and you're going to get a lot of good use out of this knife, and you're going to get it for just a hair over $100. So I did give it a 2. A little bit more expensive, but kind of in between the SHAMAN and the QB, which we're going to talk about right now. Now for the Kubi, you're getting a full-size knife, G10 handles, you're getting D2 steel with a lot of cutting surfaces. That's very well built, really nice liner lock on it, gives you multiple means of deployment too. It gives you the flipper tab so that it's very easy to deploy. You don't have to put a lot of pressure into it. You have a thumb hole that is done perfectly. People that are trying to do thumb holes, and this is going to be a knock on the SIG, and we'll talk about that a little bit, but this right here is the epitome example of how to make a thumb hole that isn't a Spidey hole. This thing works fantastic. I have no issues whatsoever. Now that fuller on here is just a fake fuller. You can't really use it. You're not getting down to it, but it does look nice and it gives it a little bit of a line. But I think I would rather just them had that swedged or just be fully flat. I think I could have done without that, but it does look good. That doesn't really matter either way. You're getting this for about 50 bucks, a little bit less, 50 after shipping. So that's going to get a 3. So you get a 1 on the Shaman being way too expensive, I feel, for what you get. You get a 2 for the SIG because it gives you a lot for the money. I mean, it gives you a lot of good features, and it's a made in the USA knife for just over 100 bucks. So it's a strong 2. And then the Kubi being the best value on the table, giving you fairly good steel with D2, giving you G10 handles that's textured, really good grip. I feel like that is a solid 3. Now, let's talk about looks. Now, looks is going to be subjective. In this instance, I feel like the Shaman looks a little funny to me. I feel like I just can't get past this finger guard. I feel like that if that finger guard, if it was just a skinny, and it was just going all the way up, or maybe if they again brought that finger guard all the way to the front, it would just look a little bit better. It's not ugly. I do like everything else outside of that. I love the leaf shape of the knife. I feel like the lines are really clean, so I did give it a 2. Same with the Kubi. It has this funny looking belly as far as looks go, and then it does have that weird fuller that's not usable there, and it clip points out. Not the best looking knife, but not ugly, so also a tool. A tool. It is a tool. All right, and then last is going to be the SIG, and even though it does have polymer, I really like the looks of this knife for some reason. I like the swedge on top of the knife blade. I think that the fuller looks really good. It's not overdone or overbuilt. I feel like they did a good job with the placement of where they put this finger guard here. The jimping's in a really good spot. I do like the way that that Spidey hole looks, even though, and we'll get to that in a minute, it doesn't really work superbly. So I did give it a 3. It's my favorite looking out of the 3. Again, that is subjective. You might think that the Shaman is gorgeous. You might think that belly on the Kubi is awesome. That is subjective, and that's part of the fun of all of this for me. All right, so the last thing that I want to talk about is deployment. Now, when it comes to deployment methods, I did give the Shaman a 3. The Shaman has the finger hole so that you can flick it, you can reverse flick it. It has jimping that's so well done on that, that still makes me laugh, on that blade spine that you can actually front flip that thing. That is crazy. It is very satisfying to slow roll out too. I really can't emphasize that enough. It has a really nice heavy detent, but it's so smooth that it's just satisfying to take all the way out there. So I did give that a 3. It keeps the fingers out of the blade path. I really do like that a lot. Now, as far as deployment goes, I did give the Kubi a 2. The 2 is because I do like the fact that it gives you that flipper tab, but it also adds to the presence and the overall height of the knife, as do all flipper tabs, so it's no fault of it. But I feel like from a user perspective, it's mostly intuitive for folks that might be a little bit newer to knives. You're probably going to encounter an audience that's more inclined to spend 50 bucks on a knife for work, that has good materials and is built well, that is going to learn to understand how to use that flipper tab. And I do like the fact that it does have the best eye hole of any non-SPYDERCO knife that I've ever encountered. And I know that's a bold statement, and I also haven't handled a whole ton of knives outside of SPYDERCO that have thumb holes. But when you look at that thumb hole on that SIG K320, we'll get to that in just a second. I do have complaints about that. My one also holdback about that is while it does feel really good in hand and it is really difficult to fail, It does have a really, really light detent for such a big knife. So if you really, really try, you can fail this. And I do think that's partially because that detent is kind of light. Now, if you're just using it and even if you're lightly pressing on that flipper tab, it's still going to deploy. I'm literally having to use my thumb to kind of help me stop to show you where it can easily come out and fail. But I think they do that because of the reverse flick, but it's not as satisfying to slow roll. I think that's because of the ceramic bearings. It feels like kind of slippery in that part of the slow roll. So that's another reason why I gave that the 2. And then when it comes down to the SIG K320, I gave that as a 2 as well. It has all the same deployment methods as a SHAMAN, but it gives you the ability to not even have to touch the blade to deploy it, which I think is a really nice feature if you're one-handed operating. Not that you can't slow roll, but it does feel a little bit mushy with that slow roll. And I think that's kind of one of the reasons why I was debating on making that a 1, but the fact that you can deploy it, I did give it a 2. I think I said 3, but I gave it a 2 because it gave you that able out access lock. But I did knock off on the fact that it does feel a little bit mushy, and you have to really like go at it hard, and you have to push your finger in there hard to get it to work. I feel like that thumb hole could have been a little bit bigger, and it would have probably would have felt better to deploy it if it were built with the same type of ramp up that you feel inside of the hole on the Kubi. So I gave the SHAMAN the 3 because it's my favorite deployment method. I gave both of these guys a 2. Now, overall score, who won? That is a great question. The Kubi, unfortunately, fell behind with 24 points, but this race was closer than it sounds. So 24 points, it scored fairly well, especially, again, considering that it's priced at around $50. If you don't want to spend a lot of money on a knife that you're going to take to work and use hard, that is a viable option. That D2 is going to work well, but you're going to have to be ready to put in a little bit of effort to sharpen it. And that's my one complaint about D2. It's not corrosion resistant, so it is going to be susceptible to getting wet and corroding a little bit, so you're going to have to be careful and mindful of that. You're not going to have that problem with the S30V variants that are here on the table, but it is a very solid option if you want something that you can use and abuse, and even if it does corrode down the road, $50, you'll have another knife and you'll have still spent less than the other knives on the table. So that is a factor. But it did lag in with 24 points. Second place came to the SHAMAN with 26 points. So only 2 points separate last place and second place on the table. And I'm not surprised at that at all, because I feel like these are all really strong options for different reasons. The winner, coming in at 27 points for my worker knife competition, which actually surprised me. I wasn't sure how it was going to come out until I started going through and just kind of giving scores based on what I felt about the knife for each category. So the K320 came in with 27 points, only 1 point separate first from second place, but still coming in at just over $100. That is very, very impressive. It is a made in the USA knife. It gives you S30V, fantastic looks, cutting performance, ergonomics, a lot of it going for it. The only kicker about this knife, again, is the sluggish feeling when you try to deploy it with the thumb hole and the reverse flick. And it is a little bit mushy on the deployment. But really, none of these knives are perfect in my opinion. Each of them have a little bit of a flaw. That's my battle of the worker knives. What do you guys think? Who would you have picked? Or do you guys have another knife that you think I should have considered for this competition? I really appreciate you tuning in. Thanks for leaving the like, subscribing, and following along. I appreciate all the love and the support. You guys rock. I hope you all have a fantastic week, and you know the deal. Until next time, peace.